This flesh was seeded from no foreign grain, but Pennsylvania and Kentucky wheat. And it has soaked in California rain, and 5 years tempered in New England sleet. To strive at last against an alien proof, and by the changes of an alien moon, to build again that blue American roof over a half-forgotten battle tune, and call unsurely from the haunted ground armies of shadows, and the shadows sound.
Captain Baldwin's a Yankee slaver, blow, blow, blow the man down. He traded in Negroes and loved his Savior. Give me some time to blow the man down.
The captain closed the Bible carefully, putting it down as if his fingers loved it. Then he turned. Mr. Mate.
Yes, sir.
I think while this weather lasts, we'd better get them on deck as much as we can. They keep better that way. Besides, he added, unsmiling, she's begun to stink already. Well, the trade, he said. The trade's no damn perfume shop.
I'm afraid we'll lose some more of the women, said the mate.
Well, they're a scratch lot, said the skipper. Any sickness?
Just the usual, sir.
The Lord is merciful, said the skipper. His voice was wholly sincere. An old ship's bell hung in the steeple of a meeting house. Well, you'd better take another look-see, Mr. Mate.
Lantern in hand, he went down to the hold. Each time he went, he had a trick of trying to shut the pores of his body against the stench, by force of will, by thinking of salt and flowers, but it was always useless. He kept thinking, when I get back home, when I get a bath and clean food, when I get my shore clothes on, and one of those shirts out of the linen closet that smells of lavender, will my skin smell black even then? Will my skin smell black? The mate made himself stare until the eyes dropped. Then he turned back to the companionway. His forehead was hot and sweaty. He wiped it off. But then the rough cloth of his sleeve smelt black.
The captain shut the Bible as he came in. Well, Mr. Mate?
All quiet, sir.
The captain looked at him sharply. Sit down, he said in a bark. You're young for this trade, mister, and that's a fact. I get my sailing orders from the Lord. He touched the Bible. And it's down there, mister, down there in black and white, the sons of Ham, bond servants, the sweat of their brows. His voice trailed off into text. I tell you, mister, he said fiercely, the pay's good pay, but it's the Lord's work, too. We're spreading the Lord's seed, spreading his seed. His hand made the outflung motion of a sower, and the mate, staring, seemed to hear the slight patter of fallen seeds on fertile ground. Black, shining seeds, robbed from a black king's storehouse, falling and falling on American earth.
Oh, Lordy Jesus, won't you come and find me? They put me in jail, Lord, way down in the jail. Won't you send me a prophet, just one of your prophets? Like Moses and Aaron, Lord, get me some
Horses of anger, trampling horses of anger, trampling behind the sky in ominous cadence, beat of the heavy hooves like metal on metal, trampling something down.
Jack Elliott had been out all day alone, except for his new gun and Ned the setter, the old, wise dog with autumn in his eyes, who stepped the fallen leaves so delicately they barely rustled. Elliot trampled them down. He'd meant to hunt, but he let the gun rest on his shoulder. It was enough to feel the cool air of the last of Indian summer blowing continually across his cheek. Jack Elliott felt that turning of the year stir in his blood like drowsy fiddle music, and knew that he was glad to be Connecticut-born. So, with his back against a tree, he stared at the pure golden feathers in the west until the sunset flowed into his heart. There was a fairy hush. Broke the peace.
Like wind it was, the flutter of rising wind. But then it grew until it was the rushing of winged stallions, distant and terrible, trampling beyond the sky.
Meanwhile, in Concord, Emerson and Thoreau talked of an ideal state so purely framed it never could exist. Meanwhile, in Boston, Minister Higginson and Dr. Howe waited for news about a certain project that had to do with Pike's and Harper's Ferry. Meanwhile, in Georgia, Clay Wingate dreamed, riding back through the Georgia fall to the white-pillared porch of Wingate Hall.
Fall of the possum, fall of the coon, and a lop-eared hound dog baying the moon. Fall that is neither bitter nor swift, but a brown girl bearing an idle gift. A smokiness so vague in the air you feel it rather than see it there. A brief white rime on the red clay road, and slow mules creaking a lazy load through endless acres of afternoon. A pine cone fire and a banjo tune, and a julep mixed with a silver spoon. This was his Georgia. This his share of pine and river and sleepy air, of summer thunder and winter rain. For wherever the winds of Georgia run, it smells of peaches long in the sun. And the white wolf winter, hungry and frore, can prowl the north by a frozen door. But here, we have fed him on bacon fat, and he sleeps by the stove like a lazy cat. Here, Christmas stops at everyone's house with a jug of molasses and green young boughs. And the little New Year, the weakling one, can lie outdoors in the noonday sun, blowing the fluff from a turkey wing at skies already haunted with spring. Oh, Georgia, Georgia.
He drank his fill of the air and then was just about to ride on again when... What was that noise beyond the sky? That harry of unseen cavalry riding the wind.
The horses, burning hooved, drove on toward the sea.
But where they had passed, the air was troubled and sick. There was a whisper moving that air all night, a whisper that cried and whimpered about the house where John Brown prayed to his God by his narrow bed.
Omnipotent and steadfast God, who in thy mercy hath upheaved in me Jehovah's rod and his chastising wrath. For 59 unsparing years thy grace hath worked apart to mold a man of iron tears with a bullet for a heart. Yet since this body may be weak with all it has to bear, once more before thy thunders speak, Almighty, hear my prayer. I saw thee when thou didst display the black man and his lord, and bade me free the one and slay the other with the sword. And should the Philistine defend his strength against our blows, the God who doth not spare his friend will not forget his foes. Lord, if we live, we free the slave, and if we die, we die. But thou hast digged thy saints a grave beyond the western sky. Get up, my hardy sons. From this time forth we are no longer men, but pikes and guns in God's advancing war.
Brown's raiders reached the Maryland Bridge of Harper's Ferry that Sunday night. There were 22 in all, 19 were under 30, 3 not 21. The bearded faces looked strange in the old daguerreotypes. They tied up the watchman and took the rifle works.
It was Patrick Higgins' turn. He was night watchman of the Maryland Bridge. A tough little Irishman, he came humming his way to his job. Halt ordered a voice. He got away with a bullet crease in his scalp and warned the incoming train. It was 1:30.
A moment later, a man named Shepard Hayward, free Negro, baggage master of the station, came looking for Higgins.
Halt called the voice again. But he kept on, not hearing or understanding. A rifle cracked. He fell by the station platform, gripping his belly.
Brown did not know at first that the first man dead by the sword he had thought of so often as Gideon's sword was one of the race he had drawn that sword to free.
And so the night wore away, indecisive and strange. The raiders stuck by the arsenal. Meanwhile, there was casual firing.
Meanwhile, the train passed over the bridge to carry its wild news of abolition devils sprung from the ground, to pillage Harper's Ferry with fire and sword. The alarm bell in Charlestown clanged.
In a score of sleepy neighboring towns, the same bell clanged.
God knows why John Brown lingered.
The firing now was constant.
Twice Brown sent asking a truce.
The second time, there went Stevens and Watson Brown, 2 of his men with a white flag. Stevens, shot from a window, fell in the gutter, horribly wounded. Watson Brown crawled back to the engine house that was the final fort.
A Mr. Brewer, one of Brown's prisoners, strolled out from the unguarded prison room into the bullets, lifted Stevens up, carried him over to the old hotel they called the Wager House, got a doctor for him, and then strolled back to take his prisoner's place, shifting the quid of tobacco in his cheek mechanically as he lifted up the dirty, bloody body of the man who stood for everything he most detested, and then, incredibly, going back to jail.
Fontaine Beckham, mayor of the town, went to look at Hayward's body with Patrick Higgins.
He had been mayor of the town for a dozen years, and now they were killing people here in his town.
Suddenly, the air struck him a stiff, breathtaking blow. Oh, he said, astonished, took a step and fell on his face, shot through the heart.
The bars had been open all day, never to better business. When news of Beckham's death spread from bar to bar, it was like putting loco weed in the whiskey.
The armory yard was taken by a band of Beckham's avengers.
Only this remains to be told. When the drunken day reeled into night, there were left in the engine house 5 men, alive and unwounded, of all the raiders.
When the blackened east began to tarnish with a faint gray stain that caught on the fixed bayonets of the Marines, Lee of Virginia, Light Horse Harry's son, observed it broaden, wanting to get his business done as swiftly and summarily as possible. The whooping crowd fell silent and scattered as a single man went out toward the engine house, a letter in his hand. Lee watched him musingly. A good man, Stewart. Now he was by the door and calling out.
The door opened a crack. Brown's eyes were there, over the cold muzzle of a carbine.
The parleying began, went on and on while the crowd shivered. The parleying was done, the door slammed shut. The little figure of Stewart jumped aside, waving its cap, and the Marines came on.
Brown watched them come. His hand was on his carbine. Sell your lives dear, he said. Brown fired and missed. A shadow with a sword leaped through the sun. The shadow lunged. Brown fell to his knees. And now it was over.
All but the long dying.
Cudjoe the Negro watched from the pantry the smooth glissades of the dancing gentry, his splay feet tapping in time to the tune,
while his broad face beamed like a drunken moon at candles weeping in crystal sconces,
Wax floors glowing like polished bronzes.
sparkles glinting on royal Worcester, and all the stir and color and luster,
And Miss Louisa and Miss Amanda.
with hoop skirts wide as the front veranda.
There were the gentlemen, one and all, friends and neighbors of Wingate Hall.
Cudjoe watched and measured and knew them, seeing around and behind and through them, with the shrewd, dispassionate, smiling eye of the old-time servant in days gone by. He couldn't read and he couldn't write, but he knew quality, black or white.
Major Domo of Wingate Hall, proud of his white folks, proud of it all.
He looked for Clay in the dancing whirl. There he was, coming down the line.
Hand in hand with a dark, slim girl whose dress is the color of light and wine, Sally Dupree from Appleton.
She had the Appleton mouth, it seemed, and the Appleton way of riding. But when she sorrowed and if she dreamed, something came out from hiding. She could sew all day on an Appleton hem and look like a saint in plaster. But when the fiddles began to play and her feet beat fast but her heart beat faster, an alien grace inhabited them and she looked like her father, the dancing master. The scapegrace, elegant French Dupree, come to the South on a luckless day.
With bright face buckles sewed on his pumps and a habit of holding the ace of trumps. But slander is sinful and gossip wrong, and the candy memories are long.
The Appleton clan is a worthy clan, but we remember the dancing man. The girl is pretty, the girl seems wise. The girl was born with her father's eyes.
A girl to be kind to, a girl we're lucky in. A girl to marry some nice Kentuckian, some Alabaman, some Carolinian. In fact...
If you ask me for my opinion, there are lots of boys in the northern sections, and some of them have quite good connections.
Cudgel watched these. She went by. She's got a light foot, thought Cudgel. A light, swift foot and a talking eye. But you need more than that, Miss Sally Dupree, before you proposals with young Master Clay. And as soon as the fiddles finish slewing, there's 16 things I ought to be doing. That trashy, high-yellow rap-pocket's guinea was saying some Yankee named old John Brown has raised the devil back in Virginia and freed the niggers all over town. How come he want to kick up such a dizziness? Nigger business ain't white folks' business.
The nickeled lamp threw a wide yellow disc on the red tablecloth with the tasseled fringes. Jack Elliott put his book down with a slight impatient gesture. There was Mother knitting the same gray end of scarf, while Father read his same unaltered newspaper through the same old-fashioned spectacles with the worn bows. His father turned a creaking page of paper and cleared his throat.
The Tribune calls, he said, Brown's raid the work of a madman. Well, they're right, but...
Mrs. Elliot put her knitting down. Are they going to hang him, Will?
It looks that way.
But, Father, when?
They have the right, my son. He broke the law.
But, Will, you don't believe...
A little spark lit Mr. Elliott's eye. I didn't say I thought that he was wrong. I said they have the right to hang the man, but they'll hang slavery with him.
Now it was Mother talking in a strange, iron-bound voice he'd never heard before.
I prayed for him in church last Sunday, Will. I pray for him at home here every night. I don't know. I don't care what laws he broke. I know that he was right. I pray to God to show the world somehow that he was right and break these southern people into knowing. And I know this. In every house and church all through the north, women are praying for him, praying for him. And God will hear those prayers.
He will, my dear, said Mr. Elliott gently. But what will be his answer?
In the Cupid courthouse there in Charlestown, the jail guards had carried in the cot where Brown lay like a hawk with a broken back.
Discredited farmer, dubiously involved in lawsuit after lawsuit. Sincere, of course, as all fanatics are, and with a certain minor prophet air that fooled the world to thinking him half great. But there is this. Sometimes there comes a crack in time itself. Sometimes the earth is torn by something blind. Call it the mores, call it God or fate. That force exists and moves. And when it moves, it will employ a hard and actual stone to batter into bits an actual wall and change the actual scheme of things. John Brown was such a stone. Unreasoning as the stone, he had no gift for life, no gift to bring life, but his body and a cutting edge. But he knew how to die. Listen now. Listen. The bearded lips are speaking now. Here is the voice already fixed with night. John Brown's speech.
In the first place, I deny everything but what I have all along admitted, of a design on my part to free slaves. Had I interfered in the matter, which I admit and which I admit has been fairly proved, had I so interfered in behalf of the rich, the powerful, the intelligent, or the so-called great, it would have been all right. I see a book kissed which I suppose to be the Bible, which teaches me to remember them that are in bonds as bound with them. I endeavored to act up to that instruction. I believe that to have interfered as I have done in behalf of his despised poor, I did no wrong, but right. Now, if it is deemed necessary that I should forfeit my life and mingle my blood with the blood of millions in this slave country, whose rights are disregarded by wicked, cruel, and unjust enactments, I say let it be done.
The voice ceased. There was a deep, brief pause. The judge pronounced the formal words of death. There was the noise of chairs scraped back in the courtroom.
A month between the sentence and the hanging. A month of endless visitors, endless letters. and Mrs. Russell came to clean his coat. A sculptor sketched him.
In Charlestown, meanwhile, there were whispers of rescue, but Brown told them, "I am worth now infinitely more to die than to live."
And lived his month so busily, a month of trifles, building up a legend, and letters in a pinched, firm handwriting, sowing a fable everywhere they fell.
The North, that had already now begun to mold his body into crucified Christs, hung fables about those hours, saw him move symbolically, kiss a Negro child, do this and that, say things he never said, to swell the sparse, hard outline of the event with sentimental omen. It was not so.
He left one last written message. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty land will never be purged away, but with blood.
The gallows stairs were climbed, the death cap fitted, the hatchet cut the cord, the greased trap fell.
John Brown's body lies a moulder in the grave.
He will not come again with foolish pikes and a pack of desperate boys to shadow the sun.
John Brown's body lies a moulder in the grave. John Brown's body lies a moulder in the grave.
Slaves will be slaves next year in spite of the bones. Nothing is changed, John Brown. Nothing is changed.
There is a song in my bones. There is a song in my white bones.
I hear no song. I hear only the blunt seeds growing secretly in the dark entrails of the preparate earth.
Bind my white bones together. Hollow them to skeleton pipes of music. When the wind blows from the budded spring, the song will blow.
No, John Brown's body lies a moulder, a moulder.
My bones have been washed clean, and God blows through them with a hollow sound.
I hear it now. Faint, faint as the first droning flies of March. Faint as the multitudinous tiny sigh of grasses underneath a windy side.
It will grow stronger.
It has grown stronger. It is marching on. The phantom drum diminishes. The year rolls back. It is only winter still, not spring. Nothing is changed, John Brown. Nothing is changed, John Brown.
A smoke-stained Stars and Stripes droops from a broken toothpick, and 90 tired men march out of fallen Sumter to their ships, drums rattling and colors flying. General Beauregard is a pose of conquering courtesy.
Lincoln, 6'4" in his stocking feet, the landman, knotty and tough as a hickory rail, whose hands were always too big for white kid gloves, whose wit was a coonskin sack of dry, tall tales, whose weathered face was homely as a plowed field. Abraham Lincoln, who padded up and down the sacred White House in nightshirt and carpet slippers, the low clown out of the prairies, the ape buffoon, the small-town lawyer, the crude, small-time politician. Lincoln shambled into the cabinet meeting and sat ungainly and awkward, and then that mind turned to business.
It was the calling of 75,000 volunteers.
North and south they assembled, one cry and the other.
Close to us now, old drums hung up on a wall. But they were the first hot wave of youth too ready to die.
And they went to war with an air, as if they went to a ball. Georgia, New York, Virginia, Rhode Island, Florida, Maine.
Pineywood squirrel hunter, and clerk with a brand new gun. Thus they were marshaled and drilled, while spring turned summer again.
Until they could stumble toward death at Garter Snake, Crooked, Bull Run.
Wingate stood in his room at night, between the moon and the candlelight. He stood there a moment, wondering.
North Star, wasp with a silver sting. Blue Nose Star on the Yankee banners, We're coming against you to teach you manners. With cannon the dance to a Dixie chorus and the tiger lily of summer before us. To pull you down like a torn bandana and drown you deeper than the savannah.
And still, while his arrogance made its cry, he shivered a little, wondering why. There was his uniform, grey as ash, the boots that shone like a well-rubbed table, the tassels of silk on the colored sash, and sleek black whistle down in the stable, the hussif stitched from a beauty's fan, the pocket Bible with mother's writing, the saber never yet fleshed in man, and all the crisp new toys of fighting. And yet what happened to men in war? Why were they all going out to war?
Sally Dupre. Sally Dupre, eyes that are neither black nor gray, why do you haunt me night and day? There are too many beds where I have slept for a night unweeping to quit unwept. Why have you taken my heart from me? I am not justice nor loyalty. The little women are easier. The easy women make lighter love. I will not take your face to the war. I will not carry your cast-off glove.
So Wingate pondered in Wingate Hall, and hated and loved in a single breath, as he tried to unriddle the doubtful scroll of war and courage and love and death.
It was noon when the company marched to the railroad station. The town was ready for them. The streets were packed. There were flags and streamers and pictures of Lincoln and Hamlin. The bad little boys climbed up on the trees and yelled. The good little boys had clean paper collars on. Somebody fastened a tin can full of firecrackers to a yellow dog's tail and sent him howling and racketing the length of the street. There goes Jeff Davis, yelled somebody. The color guard with the stiff, new, flapping flag, and the ranks and the ranks and the ranks. The amateur blue, wavering ranks in their ill-fitting tight coats, shoulders galled already by their new guns. They were 3 months men. They drilled in civilian clothes till a week ago. 3 cheers for Abe Lincoln! Hooray! 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 3 groans for old Jeff Davis and the dirty Rebs. Jack Elliott, marching, saw between blue shoulders a blur of faces, but they were all faces he knew. There was mother and father and the house. He called to them, the station. The engineer wore a flag in his coat lapel. The engine had "On to Richmond" chalked all over it.
Hey, hold up, man!
Oh, my God, somebody let my dog out. Maybe he got out by himself. No, down, man. Down, good dog. Down, boy. Down, I say.
If you take a flat map and move wooden blocks upon it strategically, the thing looks well and the blocks behave as they should. The science of war is moving live men like blocks and getting them into place at a fixed moment. But it takes time to mold your men into blocks, and the flat maps turn into country where creeks and gullies hamper your wooden squares. They stick in the brush, they're tired and rest, they straggle after ripe blackberries, and you cannot lift them up in your hands and move them. It is all so clear on the maps, so clear in the mind. But the orders are slow. The men in the blocks are slow. The general loses his stars, and the block men die in unstrategic defiance of martial law.
The day broke hot and calm before the stone bridge. A Union gun opened fire. Jack Elliott heard the guns with a knock at his heart when he first heard them. They were going to be in it soon. How would it feel? They were firing. Well, that was all right, just fire as you fired a drill. But was anyone firing at them? A man down the line fell and rolled flat with a minor coughing sound and then was quiet. Jack Elliott felt that cough in the pit of his stomach a minute. After a while, they all got up and marched on. The only funny thing was leaving the man.
It is fight and run away all day. The block plan is lost. There is no plan anymore. Only blood-stained and blackened men. The South gathers for a final charge. The charge sweeps the plateau. For a moment, the Union line is a solid crescent again. A crescent of porcupine pricks of steel. Then a crescent of sand. Then spilt sand streaming away. There is no panic at first. It is merely a moment when men have borne enough and begin to go home.
Wingate felt a frog in his throat as he patted Black Whistle's reeking coat. The road and the bushes all about were cluttered with relics of Yankee rout. Haversacks spilling their shirts and socks, a burst canteen and a cartridge box, rifles and cups trampled underfoot, a woman's locket, a slashed black boot stained and oozing along the slash, and a ripe pear crushed to a yellow mash. Who had carried the locket and munched the pear? And why was a dead cat lying there, stark and grinning, a furry sack with a red flannel tongue and a broken back? You didn't fight wars with a tabby cat! He found he was telling the Yankees that. Back in the pine woods, clear and far, a bugle sang like a falling star.
Horace Greeley has written Lincoln an hysterical letter. He has not slept for 7 nights in New York. On every brow sits sullen, scorching, black despair. He pleads for an armistice, a national convention, anything almost on any terms to end this war. Only Lincoln, awkwardly enduring, confused by 1,000 counsels, is neither overwhelmed nor touched to folly. Defeat is a fact, and victory can be a fact. His huge, patient, laborious hands start kneading the stuff of the Union together again. The dough didn't rise that time. Maybe it will the next time. God must have tried and discarded a lot of experiment whirls before he got one even good enough to whirl for a minute. Down in the South, another man, most unlike him, but as steadfast, the man they called Evacuation Lee, begins to grow taller and to cast a longer shadow.
This is Elliott's tune. This is no tune but his. By Pittsburgh Landing, the turbid Tennessee sucks against black, soaked piles with soil-colored water. That country is huge and disorderly even now. In '62, it was shaggy with wilderness still. Stretches and stretches where roughly chinked log cabins stood in a wisp of open.
The forest, hewn away from the painful clearing, but waiting to come back to crush the crude house with a chant of green, with tiny green tendrils curling.
This is Elliott's tune. This is no tune but his.
Milora Villis, rising by candlelight, looked at herself in the bottom of a tin basin and wished that she had a mirror. Now spring was here, she could kneel above the well of a forest pool. She looked at the eyes, and the eyes looked back at her, but just when it seemed they could start to talk to each other. What are you like? Who are you? A ripple floored the deep glass, and the shadow trembled away. If she only had a mirror, maybe she'd know something. She didn't know what, but something important. They'd never get a mirror while there were hiders. They were bound to be hiders as long as the war kept on. She was 17. She'd seen a lot of places, a lot of roads. Pop was always moving along. She mustn't call him Pop. That was movers' talk. She must call him Father. Father used to read Latin. They weren't white trash. She knew how to read and figure. But she liked it this way. She even liked being hiders. It was exciting, especially when the guns coughed in the sky as they had all yesterday, when you knew there were armies tumbling all around you. An army must be fine to look at. But Pop would never let her do it or understand. An army or a mirror? She didn't know which she'd rather find, but whenever she thought of it, the mirror generally won. You could keep the mirror yourself.
This is Elliot's tune. This is no tune but his. Jack Elliot, least of any, expected attack. He woke about 5. Oh, this morning was Sunday morning. The bells would be jangling back home for church pretty soon. The girls would be going to church in their white Sunday dresses. Oh, he wanted to see a girl who washed her hair. Not one of the girls in the dirty blue silk wrappers with flags on their garters. He wanted to see a girl. He had to get up. He couldn't lie here and listen to Bailey and the rest of them snoring away. He started to put on his boots, looking over at Bailey. Bailey was bearded. Bailey was 32. The waking Bailey looked like a stupid horse. The sleeping Bailey looked like a dirty sack. Bailey called him Colonel and tossed in a blanket once. He managed to leave the tent without waking Bailey. Somebody nearby in the woods took a heap of dry sticks and began to break them quickly, first one by one, then a dozen together. Elliot was running. His mouth felt stiff with loud words. Officers were yelling, the usual things that officers yelled. It was a surprise. The prisoners' column straggled along the road. It was night now, but the column still marched. But Bailey and Elliot had dropped to the rear of the column, planning escape. The next bend. No, there was light for a minute. Well, the next bend after. No, the guard's coming along. Rain began to fall. A drizzle at first, then faster. Then Bailey touched him. His feet stopped walking. They moved slyly toward the woods. They were foxes escaped. And then a happy voice behind them yelled, "Howled and howled." And then Bailey's voice, "Run like hell, Jack. They'll never catch you." He ran like hell. Elliot woke from a nightmare, and he heard the gorged, sweet pouring of water through infinite boughs, the hiss of the big split drop on the beaten leaf, the bird-voiced and innumerable rain, a wet quail piping, a thousand soaked black flutes building a lonely castle of sliding tears. Elliot huddled closer under the tree.
Melora had to call the hogs that afternoon. You had to call them once or twice a month and give them food, or else they ran too wild. It wasn't a proper call, but the hogs knew. There was a scrambling noise at the edge of the woods. The gleaming call floated the air like a bright, glassy bubble, and Elliot, lost and desperate in the wood, heard it. He stumbled toward its music. The swine grunted and jostled. Melora watched them, trying to count them up. They were all there, she thought. She must be sure. She called again. No, something moved in the woods. She stared past the clearing, puzzled. So Elliot saw her beyond the swine, head lifted like a dark foal that listened softly for strangeness.
This is the hider's house. This is the ark of pine and willow boughs. This is the quiet place.
So Elliot swam back to life, swam back to warmth and the smell of cooking food. 6 days later, the world was back in its shape. He was well and strong. "You didn't say who you were," she said. "You just fell." You better tell who you are. Pop will want to know.
Melora's father watched them go off through the wood to get the water from the other spring, the big pail clanking between them. His hard mouth was, but his eyes looked somewhere beyond hardness. I know this girl. We are no bargainers, my daughter and I. We give what pleases us and when we choose. It is a habit of living.
The filled pail stood on a stone by the lip of the spring, but they had forgotten the pail. Melora turned. We ought to go back, she said in a commonplace voice. Not yet, Melora. You'll be going, she said. He could smell her hair. It smelt of leaves and the wind. He could smell the untaken whiteness of her clean flesh. He touched her shoulder. But still she gazed at the spring. Then after a while, she turned. The mirrored mouths fused into one mouth that trembled with the slow waters.
Melora, in the room she had to herself, because they weren't white trash and used to be Eastern, let the rain of her hair fall down in a stream, in a flood, on the white birch of her body. She was changed then. She was not a girl anymore. Her sharp, clear breasts were two young victories in the hollow darkness, and when she stretched her hands above her head and let the spun fleece ripple to her loins, her body glowed like deep springs under the sun. Nothing could change her now. She thought to herself, I don't know. I can't think. I ought to be scared. I ought to have lots of maybes. I can't find them. It's funny, it's different. It's a big pair of hands pushing you somewhere, but you've got to go. Maybe you're crazy, but you've got to go. It's rhymes. It's hurting. It's feeling a bird's heart beat in your hand. It's children growing up. It's being cut to death with bits of light. It's wanting silver bullets in your heart. I've got to go. She passed her narrow hand over her body once, half wonderingly. Then she slipped her dress back on and stole downstairs. The bare feet, whispering, made little sound. She knew the dark grass cool beneath her feet. She knew the opening of the stable door. It shut behind her. She was in darkness now.
Jack Elliott, lying in a warm nest of hay, stared at the sweet-smelling darkness with troubled eyes. He was going tomorrow. He couldn't skulk anymore. If he were Bailey, he'd keep Melora a night from the foggy dew and then go off with the sunrise to tell the tale sometimes for a campfire yarn. But he wasn't Bailey. He heard something move and rustle in the close darkness. What's that? He said. He got no answering voice, but he knew what it was. Melora, he said. He wasn't going away when he went to the wood. He told himself that. They'd broken the dime together. They'd cut the heart on the tree. There ought to be a preacher and a gold ring and a wedding dress. Only how could there be? He told himself, I'm all right. I'm not like Bailey. I wouldn't sleep with a girl who'd never slept with anybody before and then just go off and leave her. All he knew was he was sick for a room and a red tablecloth with tasseled fringes, where a wife knitted on an end of scarf and father read his paper through the same old-fashioned spectacles with the worn bows. He started awake. He'd been walking through dreams. He saw the high road below him. He wiped his face. He looked down toward a bridge. There were men on horses and a round stick jabbed in his back. And a slow voice said, "Reach for the sky, Yank, or I'll naturally drill you." "You're the hell of a scout," said the voice. "I could have picked you off 10 minutes ago." His hands flew up. This was Elliot's tune.
Strike up for Wingate's tune. Strike up for Sally Dupre.
Strike up for the April moon and the rain on the lilac.
For Wingate Hall in its prime, men are back from the war.
The slaves in the quarters are buzzing and talking. All through the winter their haunts were walking. But now the winter's over and broken. The sun shines out like a loving token. There's going to be mixins and mighty doings, chicken fixins and barbecuings.
The little black children with velvet eyes tell each other tremendous lies. They play at Manassas with guns of peeled willow stalks from the river field, chasing the Yanks into Kingdom Come while one of them beats on a catskin drum. They're happy because they don't know why. They scare themselves, pretending to die. But all through the scare, and before and after, their voices are rich with the ancient laughter, the Negro laughter, the blue-black rose, the laughter that doesn't end with the lips but shakes the belly and curls the toes and prickles the end of the fingertips.
Up through the garden, in through the door, the undercurrent of laughter floats. It mounts like a sea from floor to floor, a dark sea covering painted boats. It's fiction where the last good sugar of Wingate Hall is frosting a cake like a polar highland. And fat Aunt Bess in her ice-wool shawl spends the hoarded knowledge her heart is rich in on oceans of trifle and floating island. Fat Aunt Bess is older than time, but her eyes still shine like a bright new dime, though 2 generations have gone to rest on the sleepy mountain of her breast. The matriarch of the weak and the young, the lazy, crooning, comforting tongue. She has had children of her own, but the white-skinned one's a bone of her bone. Curious blossom from bitter ground, master of masters who left you bound. Who shall unravel the mingled strands or read the anomaly of your hands? They have made you a shrine and a humorous fable, but they kept you a slave while they were able. And yet there was something between the two that you shared with them and they shared with you. Graciousness founded on hopeless wrong, but queerly living and queerly strong. There were 3 stout pillars that held up all the weight and tradition of Wingate Hall. One was Cudjoe, and one was you, and the third was the mistress, Mary Lou.
Mary Lou Wingate, as slightly made and as hard to break as a rapier blade. Let us look at her now. Let us see her plain. She loved her hands, and they made her vain, the tiny hands of her generation that gathered the reins of the whole plantation. She was at work by candlelight. She was at work in the dead of night, guiding the cooking and watching the baking, the sewing, the soap and candle making, the darning, the brewing, the lady daughters, the births and deaths in the Negro quarters. She was often mistaken, not often blind, and she knew the whole duty of womankind, to take the burden and have the power, and seem like the well-protected flower, to hate the sin and to love the sinner, and to see that the gentlemen got their dinner ready and plenty and piping hot, whether you wanted to eat or not, and always, always to have the gentlemen take your arm, but never the bright, unseemly spell that makes strange gentlemen love too well once you were married and settled down with a suitable gentleman of your own. She knew her Bible, and how to flirt with a swan's down fan and a brocade skirt, for she trusted in God, but she liked formalities. and the world and heaven were both realities. In heaven, of course, we should all be equal. But until we came to that golden sequel, gentility must keep to gentility where God and breeding had made things stable, while the rest of the cosmos deserved civility, but dined in its boots at the second table. This helped Mary Lou to stand up straight, for she was gentle, but she could hate. The Yankees were devils, and she could pray for devils, no doubt, upon Judgment Day, but not send the gentlemen out to kill. Let us look at her now. Let us see her plain. She will never be quite like this again. Her heart, and she hears it tremble, and still stands fast, but
this is the last. This is the last.
the last of the wine and the white cornmeal.
The last high fiddle singing the reel.
Last of the silk with the Paris label.
The last blood thoroughbred safe in the stable.
Death has been near, and death has passed.
But this is the last. This is the last.
But the house is busy. The cups are filling to welcome the gentleman back. Each one scurrying upstairs and downstairs, laughing and hurrying.
War is a place, but it is not here. The peace and the victory are too near.
Cloud edge lifting over the trees. Saw it completely, saw it gleam. The full-rigged vessel, the sailing dream. No longer a house, but a conjure stone that could hate and sorrow and hold its own. But there was a whisper in his ear that said what he did not wish to hear. This is the last. This is the last.
Hurry, hurry, this is the last. There is no future, there is no... This is the last.
Sally Dupre and Wingate talk with the music. The dance, such a lovely dance. If I see you across a room, I will go to you. If you see me across a room, you will come to me. And yet we hate each other.
You dance so lightly. I do not hate you. I love you. But you must take me. I must break you first for a while, and you must break me, so we hate each other.
That is good music. It beats in the head. It beats in the head, it beats in the head, it ties the heart with a scarlet thread. This is the last, this is the last. Hurry, hurry, this is the last. I do not care, I am Wingate still, and I am yours while the fiddles spill. My will has a knife to cut your will. You are my foe and my only friend. You are the steel I cannot bend, but Wingate Hall must tumble down, tumble down, tumble down. Oh, Wingate Hall must lie in the dust, and the wood rot, and the iron rust, and before we meet without hate or pride, before we talk as lover and bride.
Yes, it's good music. Hear it lift. It is too mellow, it is too swift, I'm done. You are my and my unending strife, and the edge of the knife against my knife. We are linked together for good and all, but you, Wingate Hall, must tumble down, tumble down, tumble down, before the night under the same green tree. Wingate Hall must tumble down before I sew in a wedding gown and stitch my name in your heart.
Now the scene expands. Let us look at the scene as a whole. How it is set. General McClellan has marched his men at last from their camps in a great movement. There are many gates he can try. There is the Valley Gate and the old Manassas Way, but he has chosen to ferry his men by sea to that ragged half-island between the York and the James, and thrust a long slant arm from Fortress Monroe northwest to Richmond. The roads are sticky and soft.
Advancing army, city boy, farmhand, regular drafted recruit, paid substitute, confused huge weapon forged from such different metals.
Black months of war, hard-featured, defeated months. What is your tale for this army?
Let us read the old letters a while. Let us talk of men forgotten, crying out of torn scraps of paper, letters and notes scribbled and smudged on...
It is cold.
It is wet.
We marched till we couldn't stand up.
We hope this general's good. We hope he can make us win. We'll do all we can.
I felt sick last night. I thought I was going to die, but Jim rubbed me and I feel better.
Homesick, Stubborn, talking of little things.
We get better food. I'm getting to be a good cook. The food's bad.
There are only 3 professed Christians in my whole regiment. I feel sad about that.
It's muddy. It's cold. We lost the battle.
And
To die for the Union, Mother.
If we die in this battle, we will have died for the right. There's just one thing. I hope I die quick. I hope I don't have to die in the hospital.
There is one
this, they say, oh,
embedded as they bury us here after a battle. Sometimes they barely cover us.
and through it all, swelling.
It is cold.
There are times of good food and times of campfire jokes.
The mail came.
Thanks for the papers.
We put on a show last night. You ought to have seen Jim Wheeler in...
The Christians meets often now, and the Spirit moves in us strongly. Praise be to God.
You should have...
We got...
All that. But still,
We were beaten again and
Find a man who can really lead us.
Army of the Potomac, army of brave men, you are to have the victory in the end, but these bleak months are your anguish.
your voice dies out. Let us hear the voice of your steadfast enemy. Army of Northern Virginia, fabulous army, strange army of ragged individualists, the lazy scorners, the rebels against the wheels, the rebels against the steel combustion chamber of the half-born New Age. Army of planter sons, where a scholar turned the leaves of an Arabic grammar by the campfire glow, and a drawling mountaineer told dirty stories old as the bawdy world. Sentimental army, touched by all lace-paper valentines of sentiment, touched by women and your tradition idea of them, the old book-fed, half-queen, half-servant idea. Starving army, what do your dim, faint voices say?
Will we ever get home? Will we ever lick them for good?
We've got to go on and fight till we lick them for good.
They've got the guns and the money and lots more men.
Most of us never owned slaves and never expect to. But we won't lie down and let the North walk over us about slaves or anything else.
We don't know how it started, but they've invaded us now, and we're bound to fight.
Till every last damn Yankee goes home and quits.
We haven't got guns that shoot as well as their guns.
We can't get clothes that wear as well as their clothes.
But we've got to keep on till they're licked and we're independent.
It's the only thing we can do.
We've got the right man to lead us.
Army of Northern Virginia, army of legend, who was your captain that you could trust him so surely? Call Robert E. Lee out of the mist and watch him ride.
Comes Traveler and his master. Look at them well. The horse is an iron gray, 16 hands high. Short back, deep chest, strong haunch, flat legs, small head, delicate ear, quick eye, black mane and tail, wise brain, obedient mouth. Such horses are the jewels of the horseman's hands and thighs. The rider now. He too is iron gray, but the thick hair and thick, blunt-pointed beard have frost in them. Broad-foreheaded, deep-eyed, straight-nosed, sweet-mouthed, firm-lipped, head cleanly set. He and his horse are matches for the strong grace of proportion that inhabits both. And so we get the marble man again, the head on the Greek coin, idol image, worshipped, uncomprehended and aloof, a figure lost to flesh. How to humanize that solitary gentleness and strength hidden behind the deadly oratory of 20,000 Lee memorial days? The man was loved, the man was idolized, the man had every just and noble gift. He took great burdens and he bore them well, believed and followed duty first and last, was a great victor, in defeat as great, did not seek intimates, yet drew men to him, did not seek fame, did not protest against it. A Greek proportion and a riddle unread. He kept his heart as all the picklocks of biographers. He was the prop and pillar of a state, the incarnation of a national dream. And when the state fell and the dream dissolved, he must have lived with bitterness itself. He will not tell us. He remains beyond our stagecraft, reticent as ice. This man who murmured, "It is well that war should be so terrible. If it were not, we might become too fond of it." And again he said a curious thing to life. I'm always wanting something. The brief phrase slides past us. But for a second there, the marble cracked, and a strange man we never saw before showed us the face he never showed the world, and wanted something. Picklock biographers, what could he want that he had never had? It was not God or love or mortal fame. It was not anything he left undone. What does proportion want that it can lack? He only said it once. The marble closed. There was a man enclosed within that image. He wanted something. That must be enough. Now he rides traveler back into the mist.
Jack Elliott, in prison deep in the South, lay on his back and stared at the flies on the wall, and tried to remember through an indifferent mist a green place lost in the wood and a herd of black swine. They came and went. The 2 Michigan men had died last night. The Ohio brothers were going to die this week. You got pretty soon, so you knew when people would die. But it was only the mist and counting the flies that bothered him. He heard a footstep near him and turned his head. "Hello, Charlie," he said. "Where have you been?" Bailey's face looked strange, of a hurt and angry boy. "Out here in the Rebs," he said. He spat on the floor. "Hell," Bailey said. "They cheered. They licked us again. The news just come. It happened back at Bull Run." "Hey, you're crazy," said Elliott. "That was the start of the war. I was in that one." "Oh, don't be a fool," said Bailey. "They licked us again, I tell you. The same old place."
John Brown lies dead in his grave and does not stir. The South goes ever forward. The slave is not free.
John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave.
Soon the fight will be over. Slaves will be slaves forever.
John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave.
Arise, John Brown. Call up the clumsy country boys you armed with pikes and a fantastic mind. This is the dark hour. This is the ebb tide. Find your heart, John Brown.
A moldering in the grave.
Call your sons and get your pikes.
A moldering in the grave.
Your song goes on, but the slave is still a slave. Rise up, John Brown.
A moldering in the grave. Go, go, John Brown. Go, go, John Brown. Go down, John Brown. Go down, John Brown. And set that people free. Go down.
It was still hot in Washington that September. Hot in the city, hot in the White House rooms. Women in houses take their corsets off and stifle in loose gowns. They could lie down, but when they touch the bed feels hot. Sometimes they pause and push a window up to feel the blunt, dry buffet of the heat strike in the face and hear the local voices down the street.
News from the army! Extreme!
Battle, battle!
Terrible victory!
It was a little cooler 3 miles out where the tall trees shaded the soldiers' home. The lank man, Abraham Lincoln, found it so. Glad for it, doubtless, though his cavernous eyes had stared all day into a distant fog, trying to pierce it. General McClellan is now in touch with Lee in front of Sharpsburg and will attack as soon as the fog clears. I wish we'd get some news. Bull Run the 7 days, Bull Run again, and 18 months of war and still no end to it. What is God's will? They come to me and talk about God's will in righteous deputations and platoons, day after day, laymen and ministers. God's will is general this and senator that. God's will is those poor colored fellas' will. It is the will of the Chicago churches. And all of them are sure they know God's will. I am the only man who does not know it. And yet, if it is probable that God should, and so very clearly state his will to others on a point of my own duty, it might be thought he would reveal it me directly.
more especially as I so earnestly desire to know his will. I mean to save the Union if I can, and by whatever means my hands can find under the Constitution. If God reads the hearts of men as clearly as he must, then he can read in mine that old, scarred wish that the last slave should be forever free here in this country. I do not go back from that scarred wish and have not. But I put the Union first and last before the slave. If freeing slaves will bring the Union back, then I will free them. If by freeing some and leaving some enslaved I help my cause, I will do that. But should such freedom mean the wreckage of the Union that I serve, I would not free a slave. O will of God, I am a patient man and I can wait. That is my only virtue as I see it, ability to wait and hold my own and keep my own resolves once they're made, in spite of what the smarter people say. I can't be smart the way that they are smart. I've known that since I was an ugly child. It teaches you to be an ugly child. We've come a good long way, my hat and I. Years of law business, years of cracking jokes, years of trying how to learn to handle men and how to deal with women or a woman. And that's about the hardest task I know. She'll run like mercury between your hands. I understand the uses of the earth, and I have burnt my hands at certain fires often enough to know a use for fire. But when the genius of the water moves, and that's the woman genius, I'm at sea with nothing but old patience for my chart. And patience doesn't always please a woman. Earth, fire, and water. I've passed through them all. 3 elements. I have not sought the 4th deeply till now. The element of air. The everlasting element of God. I've never found a church that I could join, although I've prayed in churches in my time. The thing behind the words, it's hard to find. I used to think it wasn't there at all. Couldn't be there. I cannot say that now. And now I pray to you and you alone. Teach me to know your will. There was a man I knew near Pigeon Creek who kept a kennel full of hunting dogs. He'd sell the young ones every now and then, but the one dog he'd never sell or lend was an old, half-deaf, foolish-looking hound you wouldn't think had sense to scratch a flea, unless the flea were old and sickly, too. Folks used to plague that man about the dog, and he'd agree with everything they'd say. No, he ain't much on looks or much on speed, but mister, that dog's hell on a cold scent. I am that deaf old hunting dog, oh Lord. I will keep on because I must keep on until you utterly reveal yourself and sink my teeth in justice sooner or late. I should have run the course with younger legs. This hunting ground is stiff enough to pull the metal heart out of a dog of steel. You could have made a better-looking dog with the same raw materials, no doubt, but since you didn't, this'll have to do. Therefore, I utterly lift up my hands to you and here and now beseech your aid. For now I stand and tremble on the last edge of the last blue cliff, a hound beat out. I can't go on. Yet I must go on. I will say this. 2 months ago, I read my proclamation setting these men free to Seward and the rest. Then Seward said something I hadn't thought of. I approve the proclamation, but if issued now with our defeats in everybody's mouth, it might be viewed as a last shriek for help from a beaten and exhausted government. Put it aside until a victory comes, then issue it with victory. He was right. I put the thing aside. And ever since there has been nothing for us but defeat until this battle now. And still no news. But I make a promise now to you and to myself. If this last battle is a victory, my proclamation shall go out at last to set these other prisoners and slaves from this next year then and forever free. So much for my will. Show me what is yours. Footsteps in the hall. Good news, or else they wouldn't come so fast. Yeah? What is it now? Yes, I'm glad of that. I'm very glad. There's no mistake this time. We have the best of them. They're in retreat. This is a great day, Stanton. If McClellan can only follow up the victory now. Lord, I will keep my promise and go on. Your will in much still being dark to me. I cannot read it, but I will go on, Almighty God. At best, we never seem to know you wholly, but there's something left, a strange last courage. We can fail and fail, but deep against the failure, something wars, something goes forward, something lights a match. Something gets up from Sangamon County ground, armed with a bittern and a blunted axe, and after 20,000 wasted strokes, brings the tall hemlock crashing to the ground.
Walked in the woods that autumn and heard the dry leaves crackle under her feet, feeling below the leaves the blunt, heavy earth. She walked on further and came to the lip of the spring. The brown leaves drifted the water. She watched them drift. I'm satisfied, she thought. I'm satisfied. In spite of Pop looking fierce when he sees me walk so heavy, and knows I'll have to walk heavier still before my time comes. I'm sorry to make him sad. I'm sorry I did a bad thing, if it was a bad thing. But I'm satisfied.
Love came by from the river smoke when the leaves were fresh on the tree. But I cut my heart on the blackjack before they fell on me. The leaves are green in the early spring. They are brown as Lindsay did not ask for a wedding ring from the wind in the bending boughs. Good girls sleep in their modesty. Bad girls sleep in their shame. But I must sleep in the hollow tree till my child can have a name. Cold on the blackjack wheel, the winds of the sky for his sponsormen, and a bird to christen him. He's gonna act like a hound let loose when he comes from that blackjack tree, and he's gonna walk in proud shoes all over
The slow carts hitched along toward the place of exchange through a bleak wind. It was not a long wagon train. Wagons and horses were too important to waste on prisoners for exchange if the men could march. Many did march, and some few died on the way. But more died up in the wagons, which was not odd. If a man was too sick to walk, he was pretty sick. They'd been 2 days on the road. Jack Elliott lay between a perishing giant from Illinois out by the lakes and a slight tubercular Jew. Bailey marched. He was still able to march. They got to the river at last. Jack Elliott saw a yellow stream and slow boats crossing the stream. Bailey had helped him out. He was walking now, his arm around Bailey's neck. Their course was a crab's. The wind blew. They stared across the river and saw the flag and the tall blue soldiers walking in thick, warm coats like big, strong men who fed well. And then they cheered. It was a dry, thin cheer, pumped up from exhausted lungs. And then they heard the echo of their own cheer. But it did not end like an echo. It gathered and rose. It was the Confederate sick on the other side cheering their own. The two weak crowd voices met in one piping, gull-like cry. Then the boats began to take the weak men on board. In the midst of the stream, they passed a boat with Confederate prisoners so near the men could yell at each other. Bailey watched the boat move away. They look pretty bad, he said. They look glad to get back. They ain't such bad rebs at that. Their boat's nose touched the wharf. It swung and was held. They got out. They didn't move toward the camp at first. They stared back at the river first and the other side without saying words. They stood there thus for a space like a row of tattered cranes at the edge of a stream, blinking at something. All right, you men, said an officer. Come along. Jack Elliott's heart made a sudden lump in his chest. It was a blue officer. They were back in their lines, back out of prison. Hell, said Bailey, and burst into horrible tears. Jack Elliott held him.
Cudjoe breathed on the silver urn and rubbed till his hands began to burn with his hoarded scrap of chamois skin. The metal glittered like bright new tin, and yet as he labored, his mouth was sad.
Times is getting on mighty bad. Christmas coming sure and swift, but no use hollering Christmas gift. No use keeping this silver fitting, no use doing nothing but sitting. Gray hairs and Miss Mary's brush, a hooing wind in the bay bush. That young red setter done eat her pups. We was washing the tea set and bust 2 cups, just come apart in Liza's hand. Christmas, where you gwine to, man? They's tooken the carpets and the window weights to go and shoot at the Yankee States. They's tooken Nellie, the cross-eyed mule. Whoever took her was one big fool. They's tooken this and they's tooken that till I can't make out what they're driving at. The hand stopped rubbing, the spoons were shined. He put them back in the flannel bag and stared at his scrap of chamois rag.
Milora was tired out. She saw only a lamp and hand. The pains came hard now. A fist that hardly opened before it shut. A red stare mounting into an ultimate flurry of misty conflict. And it seemed as if she fought against the earth itself for mere breath. And something other than mere breath. She heard the roar of the tunnel drowned in earth. Earth being born. Then it was yellow silence and a weak crying. After the child was washed, they showed her the child, peekable, crumpled, breathing, swathed and indignant, with all its nails and hands that moved of themselves. She looked at the child as if she wanted to tell it, "You aren't respectable. What are you doing here?" But the child began wailing. She rocked it mechanically.
The beaten Union brigades recoiled from the crossroads town they tried to hold, and so recoiling, rest on a destined ground.
You took a carriage to that battlefield. Now, I suppose you take a motor bus. The carriage smelt of axle grease and leather, and the old horse nodded a sleepy head adorned with a straw hat, his ears stuck through it. It was the middle of hay fever summer, and it was hot. And you could stand and look all the way down from Cemetery Ridge, much as it was, except for monuments and startling groups of monumental men. So peaceable, calm and hot, where the bronze open book could still be read by visitors, and the wind. And the wind came. The wind moved in the grass, saying, while the long light and all so calm.
The south came, and the end came, and the grass comes, and the wind blows on the bronze book, on the bronze men of the bronze.
Now see instead 3 miles of living men, 3 long double miles of men and guns and horses and fires and wagons, 3 double miles of live men, 160,000 breathing men, at night on 2 hostile ridges set down.
It was 9 o'clock that morning when the firing began, but it was 3 before the attacks were launched. They say the bluecoats, marching through the ripe wheat, made a blue and yellow picture that men remember even now in their age, in their cracked-voiced age. They say the noise was incessant as the sound of all wolves howling when that attack came on. They say when the guns all spoke, the solid ground of the rocky ridges trembled like a sick child. And so the storm came on. The men who fought there were the tried fighters, the hammered, the weather-beaten, the very hard-dying men. They came and died. They came again and died. They stood there and died. The crest is 3 times taken and retaken in fierce wolf flurries of combat, in gasping Iliads too obscure to freeze in a song. But at last, when the round sun dropped and that last attack came with its cry, Jack Elliott saw it come on.
They'd been waiting for hours on that hard hill, sometimes under fire, sometimes untroubled by shells. A man chewed a stalk of grass and hummed to himself. Another played mumbly-peg with a worn black knife. 2 men were talking girls till they got too mad and the sergeant stopped them. Then they waited again. Jack Elliott waited, hearing that other roar rise and fall, be distant and then approach. He sighed and looked at the sky, as if to build a house of peace from that blue. But he could find no house of peace there. Only the roar and the slow sun sinking. He was lying behind a tree. The shelling burst out from the southern guns again. Their own batteries answered. The man with the old black knife shut up his knife and began to baby his rifle. They're coming, Jack thought. This is it, this is it. He felt the old familiar tightness around his chest. The man with the grass chewed his stalk a little too hard and then suddenly spat it out. Jack Elliott saw through the falling night that slight gray fringe that was war coming again. Not as it came in pictures with a ruler edge, but like a child's crayon, but moving on. Red handkerchiefs of flags sagging up there. It was still like a toy attack. It was swallowed now by a wood flags. Their own guns on the crest were trying to break it up, but it still kept on. One fringe, and another fringe, and another. He lost them all for a moment in a dip of ground. This is it, he thought with a parched mind. It's a big one. They must be yelling all right, though you can't hear them. They're going to do it this time. Do it or bust. You can tell by the way they come. I hope to Christ the batteries do their job when they get out of that dip. Hell, they've lost them now, and they're still coming. He heard a thin gnat shrieking.
Hold your fire! They're close enough, man!
The new lieutenant looked thin. Ah, go home, he muttered. We're no militia. What do you think we are? He was yelling now. He saw a red battle flag push through smoke like a prow and be blotted out by smoke and flash. His heart knocked, mumbled, holding his fire while the rags of smoke flew off. He heard a thick chunk beside him. He turned his head for a flicker of time. The man who had chewed on the grass was injuredly trying to rise on his knees, his face annoyed by a smile. Then blood poured over the smile, and he crumpled up. Elliott stretched out a hand to touch him and felt the hand rasped by a file. He jerked back the hand and sucked it. Bastard, he said. All this had occurred, it seemed, in no time at all. But when he looked back, that smoky slope of the hill was gray. And that staggering red advancing flag. And those same shouting strangers he knew so well. No longer ants, but there, and stumblingly running. And that high, shrill, hated keen, piercing all the flat thunder. His lips went back. He felt something swell in his chest like a huge and docile bubble. By God, he said, loading and firing, you're not going to get this hill. You're not going to get this hill. By God, you're not. He saw one gray man spin like a crazy dancer and another fall at his heels, but the hill kept growing them. Something made him look to his left. A yellow-fanged face was aiming a pistol over a chunk of rock. He fired, and the face went down like a broken pipe, while something hit him sharply and took his breath. Get back there, you suckers, he croaked. Get back there, you suckers. He wouldn't have time to load now. They were too near. He was up and screaming. He swung his gun like a club through a twilight full of bright stabbings and felt it crash on a thing that broke. He had no breath of grass.
For an instant, that wheel of combat. For an instant, a brief, hard-breathing hush. And then the hard sound of a column tramping. Blue reinforcements at last. A doomsday sound for the gray. Lee, a mile away in the shade of a little wood, stared with his mouth shut down and saw them go and be slain. Then saw for a single moment the blue Virginia flag planted atop the crest beside that other flag that he knew. The two flags planted together, one instant, like hostile flowers. Then the smoke wrapped both in a mantle, and when it had blown away, the valley was gray with the fallen and the wreck of the broken wave.
Wingate waked from a bloodshot dream. They were touching his leg, and he heard it. Then a blue-chinned man said a word or two. Well, now, Johnny, you ought to do till the Sawbones comes with his moving van. You're lucky you're living, little man. But why the hell did you act so strict fighting like that when you know you're licked? And where's the rest of your damn brigade? The voice died out as the ripples fade.
Army of Northern Virginia, haggard and tattered, tramping back on the pikes through the dust-white summer, with your wounds still fresh, your burden of prisoners, your burden of sick and wounded. One long groan of human anguish, 6 miles long.
The night had fallen on the narrow tent. The army was asleep, as armies sleep. War lying on a casual sheaf of peace for a brief moment, and yet with armor on. The aide-de-camp knew certain lines of Greek and other such unnecessary things as birds and peace, but are not deemed so serviceable for war. He saw imprinted on the yellow light that made the tent a hollowed jack-o'-lantern the sharp black shadow of a seated man, the profile like the profile on a bust. Lee in his tent, alone. I'd know that face among a million faces, thought the still watcher. And yet the hair and beard have quite turned white. White as the dogwood bloom. I saw him in the wilderness that day when he began to lead the charge himself and the men wouldn't let him. Gordon spoke, and then the men themselves began to yell, "Lee to the rear! General Lee to the rear!" I'll hear that all my life. I'll see those paws grabbing at Traveler in the bridle rein and forcing that calm image back from death. I reckon that's what we think of you, Marse Robert. It doesn't seem as if a cause could lose when it's believed in by a man like that. And yet we're losing, and he knows it all. No, he won't ever say it, but he knows. I'd feel more comfortable if he'd move. What keeps us going on? I wish I knew. Perhaps you see a man like that go on, and then you have to follow. There can't be so many men that men have followed so. If he's grown old, it isn't like a man. It's more the way a river might grow old. The sharp-cut profile moved a fraction now. The aide-de-camp went forward on his errand.
Milora clucked to a scurvy rack of bones between the shafts. The rickety cart moved on. Milora and her father and her child. The hot-faced girl with enormous eyes, roving from little town to little town, still looking for her soldier.
Sherman's buzzing along to the sea, jubilee, jubilee. Sherman's buzzing along to the sea like Moses riding on a bumblebee. Set in the prison and the humble free, it's the year of jubilee.
So Sherman goes from Atlanta to the sea, through the red earth heart of the land, through the pine smoke haze. Strange march, half war, half trooping picnic parade, cutting a ruinous swathe through the red earth land. March of the hardy bummers and coffee coolers, who, having been told to forage, loot as they can, and leave a wound that rankles for 60 years. And everywhere a black earth stirs, a wind blows over black earth, a wind blows into black faces, into old hands knotted with long rheumatics, cramped on the hoe, into old backs bent double over the cotton. The wind of freedom, the wind of the jubilo.
Oh, it don't matter if it's black or tan, jubilee, jubilo. It don't matter if it's black or tan, when you hear the noise of the freedom band, you snatch ball heading to the promised land. It's the year of jubilo.
They stray from the lost plantations like children stray, grinning and singing, following the blue soldiers. An old gray field hand dimly plods through the mud, looking for some vague place at the desk in his gold silk hat, with a bag of silver dollars in either hand for every old gray field hand who comes to him. Some stay on the plantations but will not work, sing idly, gamble, sleep through the lazy hours. Others, faithful beyond the bond they never signed, hold to that bond in ruin as in the sun. Steal food for a hungry mistress, keep...
Every darkey's gonna hold a mule, jubilee, jubilo. Every darkey's gonna hold a mule and live like Adam in the golden rule, and send his children to the white folks' school. It's the year of jubilo.
Cudjoe buried the silverware on a graveyard night of sultry air, while the turned sod smelled of the winter damp, and Mary Lou Wingate held the lamp. He was finished at length. He shook his head. "Mistress, reckon we's done," he said. They looked at each other, black and white, for a slow-paced moment across the light. Then he took the lamp, and she smoothed her shawl, and he lit her back to the plundered hall to pray with her old serene observance for the mercy of God upon faithful servants, and a justice striking all Yankees dead, on her cold, worn knees by the great carved bed where she'd lain by a gentleman's side, wife and mother and new-come bride. She struck her hand on the bedstead head. "They won't drive me from my house," she said, as the wood rang under her wedding ring. Then she stood for a moment, listening.
Shout Thanksgiving and shout it loud, jubilee, jubilo. Shout Thanksgiving and shout it loud. He was dead and buried in the Lazarus crowd, but the Lord came down in a glory cloud and he gave us jubilo.
Bailey, tramping along with Sherman's bummers, grumbled and found life pleasant and hummed his tune. He was well, the blood ran in him, he ate for 10. This was pretty soft. This was war the way it ought to be. He was a sergeant now, and up in his pack were souvenirs for that red-haired widow in Cairo. Some of them bought, some just sort of picked up, but not a damned one stolen to call it stealing. He mused a moment thinking of Elliot now. There was another kid, and a crazy kid. Hope he finds that girl he was talking about. Sounds like a pretty good piece for a storm and strife. His heart was overflowing with charity, but his throat was dry as the bottom of his canteen, and there was a big white house some way from the road. He found his captain, saluted, and put his question. The captain's eyes were satiric, but not displeased. "All right, Sergeant. Take your detail and forage." So, Bailey came to the door of Wingate Hall, kissed him, and gave his orders. "Clark, you and Ellis stay right here by the door." He knocked and called. There was a long, heavy silence.
"Hey, you! The house!"
Silence made him feel queer. He cursed impatiently and pushed at the door. It swung wide open. Ellis watched him with mocking eyes. "I wish they'd make me a sergeant, Clark. A three-stripe souvenir sergeant. Bailey, meanwhile, was roving like a lost soul through great empty rooms and staring at various objects that caught his eye. Funny old boy in a wig hung up on the wall. Queer sort of chairs. Made your hands feel dirty just to touch them. Everything faded and old and quiet, and the wind blowing. He moved as on tiptoe, though he couldn't say why he did. Oh, old work basket there. He opened it idly. But there was a pair of little gold-mounted scissors made like a bird, with the blades the beak of the bird. He picked up the scissors and opened and shut the blades. Sort of handsome and queer. Bessie'd certainly like this. Wouldn't take up much room. He gazed at the thing. Hadn't rusted either. Then he frowned at it. Ah, hell, he said, I got enough souvenirs. I ain't no damn coffee cooler. He started to put the scissors back in the case and turned to face a slight gray-haired woman.
Dressed in black, with eyes that burned through his skin and a voice that cut at his mind like a rawhide whip, calling him 50 different kinds of a thief and Yankee devil and liar and God knows what, tearing the throat of her dress with her thin old hands and telling him he could shoot her down like a dog, but he'd steal her children's things over her dead body.
My God, as if he went around shooting old women for fun, my God. He couldn't even explain, though. She was like all the rest. She made him sick in his lunch. Ah, hell, he yelled. Shut up about your damn scissors. This is a war, old lady.
That's right, she said. Curse a helpless female. You big, brave soldier.
Oh, what was a man to do? He got out of the house sore and angry, mean as a man could feel. Where the hell was that detail?
He saw them now, all except Clark and Ellis, gathered around a white-polled nigger, wringing his hands and weeping. Hey, Uncle, where's the well? You folks got a well? But the nigger just kept on crying like an old fool. He thinks we're going to scalp him, said one of the men. I told him twice he's free, but the shine won't listen. I give him some money, too, but he let it drop.
Well, tell him he's safe and make him rustle some water. My throat's as dry as a preacher's tongue. Where's Clark and Ellis? He found Clark solemnly prodding the hard dirt floor of a Negro cabin, while Ellis lighted the task with a splinter of burning pine. His rage exploded in boiling lava. They listened respectfully. Well, Sergeant, Ellis said, I always heard they buried stuff sometimes under these here cabins, and, well, I thought we could have a look. Well, huh, said Bailey. He seized the torch and stared at the trodden floor for an instant. Then his rage and his pride returned. Hell's fire, he said, flinging the torch aside. Come out of there on the double. Yes, I mean you. They were halfway down the driveway before Ellis spoke. Sergeant, he said, there's something on fire back there. Bailey turned, looked back.
The smoke puff climbed in the sky, and the wind was high.
He hesitated a moment. The cabin probably caught from that burning splinter. Then he set his jaw. Well, supposing it had caught. Damned old woman in black who called him a thief. They hurried along.
The smoke rose higher behind them. The wind blew the burning flakes on Wingate Hall. Sally Dupre stared out of her bedroom window as she'd stared many times at that clump of trees and saw the smoke rise out of it thick and dark. She looked at the smoke again and her eyes were gray. Then they were black as that smoke. She felt the fire run in her flesh. It's Wingate Hall and it's burning. House that married my lover before he saw me. You are burning. Burning away in a little smoke. Burning the wall between us with your fierce burning. Burning the strife between us with your black flame. Burning down. Then she caught her breath. We'll have to get the slaves if the slaves will go. I know Bob will. I'm not sure about Ned or Jim. Hurry, Sally. She ran downstairs like the wind. They worked at the hall that night till the dawn came up. 2 smoke-stained women, Cudjoe and Bob and Ned. But when the dawn had risen, the hall was gone.
Richmond has fallen, the letters are written, the orders given, while stray fighting goes on and gray men and blue men die in odd clumps of ground before the orders can reach them.
An aide-de-camp seeks a suitable house for the council from a chance farmer. The first one found is too dirty to please his mind. He picks another. The chiefs and the captains meet. Lee, erect in his best dress uniform, his dress sword hung at his side, his eyes unaltered. Chunky Grant in his mud-splash private's gear with the battered stars on his shoulders. They talk a while of Mexico in old days. Then the terms are stated. Lee finds them generous, says so, makes a request. His men will need their horses for the spring plowing. Grant assents at once. Lee walks from the little room. His face is unchanged. It will not change when he dies. The blue men stared at each other for a space of heartbeats, silent. It is over. The room explodes like a bomb. They are laughing and shouting. Bearded generals waltzing with one another. Everyone talking at once and nobody listening. It's over. It's done. It's finished. Then order again. The gray ghost army falls in for the last time, marching to stack its arms. There are no cheers or words from blue lines or gray, only the sound of feet. It is over now.
Jack Elliott, an old cudgel in his fist, walked from the town one day of melting ice. Behind him in the town, the spangled flag still fluttered or hung limp for fallen Richmond. He had a picture of Melora's face, dim with long looking at, a carried image. He tried to see it now, but it was faint. I hardly knew her. It was years ago. It was such years ago. She must have changed. I know that I have changed. We find such things and lose them and must live in spite of it. Only a fool goes looking for the wind that blew across his heartstrings yesterday. And here he was out walking on a road for no more reason than a crazy yarn just heard about a girl, her father, and a child going through towns and looking for a soldier. The wind burned at his flesh. He let it burn, staring at a lost year. So he perceived a slow cart creaking up a slope of hill, drawn by a horse as gaunt as poverty, and driven by Melora with the child.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah.
Sally, waiting at Appleton on an autumn day of clear, bright sun, felt her heart and body begin to burn as she hummed the lesson she had to learn. Mend the broken and patch the frayed, and carry your sorrow undismayed when your lover limps in the falling rain, never quite to be whole again. Clear the nettle and plant the corn, and keep your body a hunting horn, till the new grass grows on the barren plain, and the house is built from the dust again. She smiled a little and turned to see a weed-grown path and a scarlet tree, and Wingate coming there, painfully.
Glory, glory, hallelujah. His soul is marching on.
John Brown's body lies a-moldering in the grave. Spread over it the blood-stained flag of his song.
John Brown is dead. He will not come again.
Bury the South together with this man.
Bury the bygone South. Bury the minstrel with the honey mouth. Bury the broadsword virtues of the clan, the courtesy and the bitter arrogance. Bury the whip, bury the branding bars, bury the unjust thing that some tamed into mercy being wise, but could not starve the tiger from its eyes. Bury the fiddle music and the dance, the sick magnolias of the false romance.
And with these things, bury the purple dream of the America we have not been, the tropic empire seeking the warm sea, the last foray of aristocracy, the great slave-driven bark, full oared upon the dark, with fetters for the crew and spices for the few, the pomp we never knew. Bury this too. Bury this destiny unmanifest, this system broken underneath the test, beside John Brown.
Out of his body grows revolving steel.
Out of his body grows the spinning wheel, made up of wheels.
The new mechanic birth, no longer bound by toil to the unsparing soil or the old furrow line.
The great metallic beast, expanding west and east. His heart a spinning coil, his juices burning oil, his body serpentine.
Out of John Brown's strong sinews, the tall skyscrapers grow. Out of his heart, the chanting buildings rise.
Rivet and girder, motor and dynamo.
Pillar of smoke by day and fire by night.
The steel-faced cities reaching at the skies.
The genie we have raised to rule the earth, obsequious to our will, but servant master still.
Now when the crowd gives tongue, and prophets, old or young, bawl out their strange despair, or fall in worship there, let them applaud the image or condemn, but keep your distance and your soul from them. And while the prophets shudder or adore before the flame, hoping it may give ear, if you at last must have a word to say, say neither in their way, it is a deadly magic and accursed, nor it is blessed, but only it is here.
It is here.
It is here.
Hey!